Sweden's Prime Minister, Conservative Prime Minister, with a major warning to Europe, and one that hopefully people actually listen to after the mayhem we saw unleashed by Spain's left-wing government. Now, before I get to exactly what the Swedish Prime Minister has said, and as I said, I think it is very important, if you look at the track record of the Swedish government, it's really interesting because they inherited a situation where Sweden had become a gangland battleground with bombings, with shootings, pretty disturbing stuff. In terms of what the right-wing Swedish coalition government have done, well, they've got net emigration now for the first time in over 50 years. So that's more people leaving Sweden than arriving. Asylum applications have dropped to a 40-year low. They were down 30% again in 2025. They're at their lowest level since 1985. Shootings in Sweden halved in 2025. They were down 63% compared to 2022, at 49% decrease compared to 2024. Homicides in Sweden at their lowest level in over a decade. Last year, homicides and manslaughter rate falling pretty considerably. And so you can see gang violence, the Swedish government clearly dealing with this. And just to see in terms of border security where the Swedish government are coming from, this was Sweden Democrats MEP Charlie Weimers speaking recently.
The EU leaders are right. We must work more intensely to control migration. The return regulation was a victory for the common sense majority in this House. It sends a clear signal. If you have no right to be here, you will be returned. That is progress. But we must be bolder still. The entire asylum process, receiving, assessing, and hosting all claims, must be moved outside the European Union. We cannot continue to let illegal migrants set foot on European soil before their claims are even examined. That is the only way to break the business model of the smugglers and end the chaos at our borders. The only mission of Frontex must be to secure our borders. That requires removing the fundamental rights activists who have captured and paralyzed the agency from within. We need border guards, not bureaucrats who see their job as facilitating migration. Large-scale deterrence campaigns must clearly warn away illegal migrants before they risk their lives and burden our societies. And yes, we must also scrap outdated international conventions that were made for a bygone era. They no longer serve the interests of European citizens in the 21st century. It is time to take back control. For our citizens who want to feel safe in their own societies. For our nations who have the right to decide who enters. And for Europe itself, so that it can remain prosperous, secure, and recognizable for generations to come. Thank you.
Now that is quite the contrast, isn't it, to what we've seen from Spain's left-wing Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, who of course has put in place this amnesty policy in Spain.
In Spain, we have just approved a new process to legalize 500,000 irregular migrants. And I want to say to the right and the extreme right that oppose this project, we are the children of migration in Spain. We will not be the parents of xenophobia. Dear friends, we're proud to be on the right side of history, of defending international right, of defending peace, and of saying once and 1,000 times yes to peace and no to war. Yes to peace and no to war.
Estamos en medio de esta terrible crisis que está sufriendo Ceuta. Lo que queremos decir es que el desprestigio internacional de España va a seguir creciendo porque Pedro Sánchez es incapaz de defender nuestras fronteras y porque su política de inmigración descontrolada ataca también a la Unión Europea. Seguimos sin entender por qué Marruecos no cuida de su infancia, de sus menores y de sus jóvenes. Es algo que no logramos entender.
And of course, after that, and I talked about this many times, that of course acted as a massive pull factor. You then saw complete and utter mayhem unleashed. And that has had, of course, a huge impact on countries in the European Union with open borders with Spain. So the Swedish Prime Minister of Kristersson, very clear here that he wants to see the Spanish authorities regain control of this situation. And of Kristersson with a warning. And before I get to that precise warning, this shows you where Kristersson is coming from.
Government proposal would raise it to 32,000 euros, a 3,400% increase.
I don't think that would be a method that works for very many people, but we do have a problem with integration. Then if people who have the legal right to stay in Sweden but basically do not integrate, basically do not really appreciate the Swedish way of life, then at least people would think about returning to their country of origin. Right now we have some 80% of those have a negative decision on the side of they nevertheless they stay in Europe. That is simply unacceptable in Sweden, but we have managed that. I think we have now some 20% staying, even though they shouldn't, but by those who have had a negative decision. So we need, we absolutely need to get control over migration.
So yeah, look, after that mayhem that we saw recently, sadly following the Spanish illegal migrant amnesty, you've got Ulf Kristersson here, very clear and speaking on behalf of Sweden. So we expect the Spanish government to now take the necessary and concrete measures required to protect Europe's external borders, and pointing out that this is about Europe's borders and shows what happens when they are not protected, and then we must never go there again. But more specifically, he's gone much further than that now with this warning. Warning that this amnesty is a very bad idea, that it could now lead to a huge migration crisis. Speaking to the Financial Times there, and we're talking here an amnesty, well over 1 million have applied, illegal migrants in Spain for this. Now he clearly campaigning on his record ahead of Sweden's elections later this year. And indeed, you've got Kristersson there warning that there is a huge majority in Sweden saying they cannot go back to an uncontrolled situation, and that doing things that could jeopardise a stable situation would be a very bad idea. So yeah, a very strong warning there from the Swedish Prime Minister. Of course, the problem is, inside the European Union, they've got EU open borders. But do let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. Please do whack this video a quick thumbs up. And of course, as ever, cheers for watching.